Hey guys, this is Varun Inamdar and welcome to Get Curried. Well, it's Valentine and like every year, this Valentine also, I'm going to make something special for my wife and my loved ones. Well, let's make Valentine cookies. So here is a little surprise for you. What I'm going to do is make a common dough and make 3 cookies out of that. How? Let's begin. The dough that I'm going to make today for you is a classic short crust dough. For that, we require 200 grams of refined flour, 100 grams of butter, and 50 grams of sugar. Now the ratio here is how much ever refined flour you have, you need half the quantity of salted butter and half of that is the sugar. So the first thing is to add the butter into the refined flour. Well, the classic dough says chilled butter, cubed butter, but here I'm going to make it absolutely simple. So you can take butter at any temperature and we need to mix all of this till it reaches breadcrumb-like consistency. Well, this is done best with fingers, so off goes the spoon. So the next step here is to add in caster sugar. That's how it looks, breadcrumb-like. To this, let's commonly flavor this by adding in vanilla bean. What I have done is taken a vanilla pod, like so, just massage it so that kind of the beans open up little, and slit that into half lengthwise. And scrape this on the back of your knife, but carefully. So you see, these are the fresh vanilla beans that we need to use for these cookies. Let's add these. Well, alternately, if you do not have this or do not kind of source this, please use vanilla essence. Let's massage this as well. To bring this dough together, you need a liquid medium. In this case, I'm adding in an egg yolk. Well, this will also make it nice and moist. Well, if you wish to avoid the egg yolks, you could add 15 ml of milk. Once the dough comes together, we need to divide this into roughly 3 portions. The first one needs to be colored chocolate brown in color. For that, I'm using 1 teaspoon of cocoa powder. And because this is going to make the dough drier, we need to add in a teaspoon of cold water. Let's mix this well. With this, our cocoa flavored dough or our chocolate dough is ready. Well, let's keep this aside and move on to the next dough, which I'm going to color red to signify red velvet. Just a few drops of food grade edible red color and mix this well. With this, our red velvet dough is also ready. Let's keep that with the chocolate one. And finally, the plain vanilla, which we're going to retain as it is. Well, let's keep all of this together. And this now goes in the refrigerator for a minimum of 30 minutes to rest. The dough has rested well. The next step is to roll this into a thin sheet. Just so that it doesn't stick to the base, I'm going to apply a little bit of refined flour, press this a little, and sheet this into the desired thickness. Well, because it's a short crust pastry, you may see that it kind of crumbles and wrinkles at the edges, but that's absolutely perfect. Just get the dough together like so and sheet it each time, making sure it doesn't stick at the bottom. The next step is to cut this into rounds, for which let's dab a cutter in refined flour and punch it. And place this on a baking tray. Similarly, let's take the next dough and sheet it up. This time, let's cut this with a knife in a cute heart shape. And move on to the cocoa dough. The whole process of sheeting the dough in a thin sheet and cutting that remains the same. I'm going to cut this into rectangles like so. I'm going to punch a small heart out of this cookie. We need to carefully lift this without changing the shape and without breaking the cookie. This needs to be baked at 200 degrees Celsius for 12 minutes. The cookies are baked and ready. Let's pull them out of the oven. Let's cool these completely, and that would take around 20 minutes to 30 minutes. Well, if you notice, we need to pull these out exactly after 12 minutes. Because of the residual heat, they will still continue to cook. In the oven, it'll turn harder and not remain crisp anymore. While the cookies are cooling, let's make the topping or the royal icing. For that, I've taken a cup and a half of powdered sugar. To this, I'm adding a tablespoon of corn flour, a tablespoon of lemon juice for two reasons. One is to kind of balance the sweetness with the tartiness, and the second reason is to brighten the white color. To this, I'm adding in 2 tablespoons of egg whites, and let's give this a whisk. Once all this is mixed together, we'll be adding in a tablespoon of chilled water. We need to beat this for at least 8 to 10 minutes till it becomes nice and fluffy. Our royal icing is now beaten well and ready. And if you notice, there are some semi-hard peaks which need to be formed like so. And transfer half of this so that we can color it nice, bright and red. For this, I'm adding in the same food grade red color, and let's give this a mix using a spoon. Once this is nicely mixed, this needs to be kept aside under a damp cloth. The next step is to take 2 bowls and transfer the desired quantity in each of the bowls. I'm adding in a teaspoon of water in each. This is purely to adjust the consistency. Let's transfer this straight in a piping bag and give it a very tiny snip using a sharp scissor. While you can follow what I'm showing, you can of course use your creativity, write a little note, write few words, do a little decoration as per your choice. The cookies are decorated and ready. Leave this out for at least half an hour so that the icing kind of sets. With this, Valentine special cookies are ready to impress your Valentine. And this one is definitely for my Valentine.
Hello darlings, welcome to another episode of Curries and Stories. Today it's all about red roses, fluffy clouds, cute puppies, hearts, couples looking at each other with loving eyes, holding their hands. Anyway, enough of that romance. Today it's all about Valentine's Day. I'm not really into that, but I'm going to make a lovely, luscious red velvet cake so you can share with that loved one that you have at home. Yeah, right. Anyway, let's crack on. Right, so here we have 120 grams of room temperature butter, i.e. softened butter, a cup and a half of caster sugar. Blend this until it's light and fluffy. So the butter is nicely creamed into the sugar. Now watch this next step. 2 eggs. Crack them in one at a time, but before you add the second one, you need to mix this in. In, give it a stir, give that bingo wing a little workout. So we're going to beat this until it becomes nice, light and fluffy. So now this is mixed nicely, I'm going to add the rest of the wet ingredients. Now here I have some red food colouring, obviously because it's a red velvet cake, and some cocoa powder. Give that a mix to make kind of a little paste. Make sure that all the cocoa powder's mushed in. So in goes the mixture of cocoa powder and food colouring, some vanilla essence. Pop that in, give it a mix. Scrape down the sides as you go along. Now, it might not look very attractive right about now, but trust me, it will taste divine. Now into some plain flour, I'm going to add some baking powder and a pinch of salt. And I'm going to sieve some of this, about a third of it, into my mixture. Now here I have some buttermilk. I'm going to add a third of this and you incorporate this in. A bit more of the flour mixture. Sieve it in. Another lot of the buttermilk. Now stir it in. Just beat out all the lumps as much as you can. And now for the last lot of flour. And the rest of the buttermilk. Give that a stir in. And then finally, some bicarb and vinegar. Now here I have some white vinegar and I'm going to add into that some bicarb. Chuck that in. And we're almost there on the final furlong. So remember, one other thing I forgot to tell you, lovely people, is to preheat your oven before you start this mammoth task at 180 degrees. Right, we're ready to pour into our tins. So I've lined my cake tin and I've greased it all with butter. Now, if your mixture looks a little grainy like mine does, don't worry too much. The reason being is I should have probably spent a little bit more time beating the sugar and the butter, but as a lot of you know how impatient I am, so I've got a little bit extra batter left. That's for my special tin. Yes, I'm unromantic, but I thought as it's Valentine's Day, I treat you to a little heart. So I'm going to pour the rest of my batter into this. Normally this batter would fit a 9-inch tin. Right, time to get these babies into the oven. Preheated, remember, 180 degrees. They will take about 30 to 40 minutes or until a skewer comes out clean. Now you may be wondering what these are. As you know, I'm not a very patient person, so I did make a batch of red velvet cake earlier. These are crystallized rose petals that I'm going to use for decoration, as it is supposed to be romantic. So I'm going to pluck a petal from this rose. It's very easy. Oops. Now I have some egg white here. Brush the egg wash on both sides of the rose petal. Put it in some caster sugar. Make sure it's all covered. Now these need at least 2 hours to dry. Right, now for my favourite part, the butter, cream, cheese frosting. So I've got my butter here, which is at room temperature, some icing sugar. And now for the cream cheese. Just stir vigorously. You can continue stirring if you wish, but I'm going to give it a whisk. And the final ingredient is a bit of vanilla extract. Plop it in. Stir it all in. It should be really nice and light and creamy. Well, I guess there's nothing really light about lots of butter. That's it. It's done. Now for a quick taste. It's got to be done. Oh. I could just put my face in that. Here's one I made earlier. I've always wanted to say that. Looks good. I've trimmed it, flattened it, inverted it, and it's looking amazing. So what I will do is I'll slice it in half, which is a bit of a tricky operation. But what I will suggest is use a serrated knife. Perfecto. So after that delicate operation of slicing this in half, here comes the fun bit. Now while I'm doing this, I will let you know that I did put this in the fridge to chill, and the cake needs to be completely cold because as this has got butter in it, you don't want it to start melting. So you try not to take it towards the complete edge, otherwise it will seep to the sides. Not that it bothers me that much. Lovely. And now, the second part of this delicate operation. Place it on the top. Don't worry about a few crumbs. Now for the final flourish. Right in the middle. Let's see, let's spread this. Oh yes. And now to make it pretty, shake off any excess sugar. As you can see, they've become stiff. And there you have it, guys, my version of red velvet cake with cream cheese and butter frosting with some lovely rose petals. How romantic. Not. Enjoy, because I know I will.
Hi everyone. So Valentine's Day is around the corner and you can see me with chocolate here. I'm going to make something special for Valentine's Day, and it's going to be a smooth and velvety chocolate mousse. So of course we're going to start with some chocolate, and I've cut it up into tiny pieces here because that'll just make it so much easier for it to melt. I'm going to use a double boiler to melt the chocolate today, and I'm using 225 grams of dark chocolate. So I always find that for chocolate mousse, using a double boiler method is always more reliable. So the chocolate is measured there. I'm going to add the butter. So this is going to be about 80 grams of butter. Again, I've got the butter at room temperature. I'm just going to heat up some water here. So if you see the pan here, I'm just adding just about an inch of water, no more. And while that water is heating up, I've got 3 egg yolks here. And this recipe takes about 50 grams of sugar, caster sugar, and I'm just going to add about half of that caster sugar to the egg yolks here and just whisk this up. Okay, so that's whisked up and the water is warm, and very carefully now I'm just going to lift this bowl and hold it over this. Just remember, at no point must the bottom of this bowl touch that hot water, because then the chocolate can burn. So now I don't have the most comfortable bowl situation happening here. So what I'm going to do is that every once in a while, I'm just going to pick up the bowl from here and stir the chocolate and the butter together. So, a bigger bowl would have just been ideal here, but I've never let not having the right equipment stop me from making a recipe. Least of all a chocolate mousse, right? So melting chocolate is a labor of love, but it's so worth it. Just look at it. It's shiny and glossy, and I'm going to set it aside now. And now I'm going to move very quickly. These are the egg yolks that I had whisked earlier. I'm going to add a tablespoon of cocoa powder. And now this is not going to whisk very evenly because it's not warm. I'm going to place it over this bowl, again over the double boiler, and constantly whisk this because I want it to thicken but not cook. I don't want scrambled eggs. Okay, so this is done now. It's thickened, and don't even stop whisking for a second. Take this off the heat, and while you're whisking this, just add this and continue whisking. So the egg yolks are cooked and they're completely incorporated with the melted chocolate. I've mixed these two together. I'm just going to set this aside just for 2 minutes and first whip up the cream. My cream, the beater and the bowl are chilling literally in my refrigerator. So I'm going to quickly dash and bring them out. I'm going to start whipping the cream now. Soft peaks. This is the stage I want the whipped cream at, and I'm just going to leave it in the refrigerator again, covered and chilled till I have to use it again now. And what am I going to do in the meantime? I'm going to beat the egg whites to stiff peaks. So beating egg whites is a tough workout, but luckily for me, I'm using an electric whisk. I'm not going to do it manually completely. Start. Just as I see this fluffing up, I'm going to stop and add a pinch of salt and start again. So you remember the other half of the caster sugar that we had left? I'm just going to add it in batches to this and continue whisking. Should we do the stiff peak test? Yay! It's not falling! So this is now beaten to stiff peaks, and now I'm going to fold the chocolate mousse together. Okay, the cream is nice and chilled, and now I'm just going to start folding everything together. I'm going to start with the egg whites, but I'm going to do this in batches. Wow, just look at that! So tempting to eat it like this, but don't. Just hold on. It's going to be amazing. In just a minute or so. Just fold this in. And when you're folding the egg whites or even the whipped cream, just always remember, do this in one direction. Otherwise, we're just going to end up losing all the air that we've worked so hard to beat into both of these things. And now for the rest of the egg whites. So the egg whites are completely folded into the chocolate mixture and it's nice and fluffy. And now I'm going to start folding in the whipped cream, but I'm only going to use about 3/4 of it. The rest I'm going to save for the garnish. Okay, now I'm just ready to scoop these into my ramekins. So very carefully, without losing the air from this. Clearly, I don't believe in any small helpings of chocolate mousse. Not when I've worked this hard to make it. This is so yum, I can't resist trying it right now. But I'm going to cover this up with some cling film and leave it in the refrigerator for at least for a few hours now. So you need to let this chocolate mousse chill for at least 3 to 6 hours. It depends entirely on your refrigerator. And at the end of that time, you're going to have something that looks like this. Now, it's just so gorgeous on its own that I'm not going to do too much to it now. Just a simple garnish of some whipped cream and maybe just a little bit of chocolate shavings. That's it. This chocolate mousse is just so awesome. You've got to make it for your Valentine, for the one you love, or, just make it for yourself.
Hello my lords, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Saraf's Food Log. It's that special day of the year again, the day we try to desperately reconnect with every single person we've been out with through the year to celebrate our love and failing miserably doing so. But if in case you do succeed to connect with someone, I have for you a special dessert that you can make on this very special Valentine's Day. Something that will rise as high as your love, a chocolate souffle with crème anglaise. The first and the most important step for making any souffle is preparing the mold. Now why is that? Because we need to make sure that the souffle doesn't stick to the mold and rises properly in the oven. We're going to butter this mold and then line it with some caster sugar. And now we chill this in the fridge till we're ready to use them. So now it's time to make our base for the chocolate souffle. For this, I'm going to melt 250 grams of dark chocolate and about 50 grams of butter in a heat-proof bowl over a water bath. Once it is melted, we take it off the heat and out of the water bath. When the chocolate cools down slightly, we add in 4 egg yolks. And we whisk it together. To this we add a teaspoon of vanilla essence and whisk it again. Followed by 10 grams of corn flour and a pinch of salt. And now we keep this aside and work on the egg whites. And now I shall whisk these egg whites to stiff peaks, 8 egg whites to be precise. When the egg whites are foamy, we add in 50 grams of caster sugar, still whisking the egg whites. So, let's go. And the egg whites have reached stiff peak. And now it's time to cut and fold the egg whites into the chocolate mixture. For this, we first take 1/3 of the egg whites and mix it into the chocolate mixture to loosen it up. And then we cut and fold the rest of the egg whites in 2 batches. When we're done with this mixture, we pour it in our prepared chilled souffle molds. So, here we go. Fill it right up to the top. I also prepared some extra souffle molds in case I have some more mixture left. Make sure the tops are nice and flat. And clean off the excess of the sides. And now we place these in the oven at 200 degrees for 20 minutes. While the soufflés are rising in the oven, let's make the vanilla crème anglaise. For that, we take 235 milliliters of cream and put it on a medium to low heat. As the cream heats up, we add 65 grams of caster sugar and a teaspoon of vanilla essence to 4 egg yolks, and we whisk it together. And now we add this egg yolk and sugar mixture to the heated cream and stir it together with the spatula on low heat till the cream thickens. When the mixture coats the back of the spoon, through which you can draw a finger, it's done. So we take it off the heat and immediately, to stop it from cooking further, pour it into another container. Now let's dust these with some icing sugar. So there you have it, chocolate soufflés with crème anglaise, a beautiful dessert for a beautiful Valentine. But make sure you eat them quickly, they fall as soon as they rise, just like true love. Let's make a hole and add some crème anglaise. Hello my lords, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Nick Saraf's Food Log. Today we're making an all-time favorite dessert, the gooey dark chocolate brownie with caramel sauce. So for making gooey dark chocolate brownies, we have with us 200 grams of butter and 200 grams of dark chocolate. Now I'm going to mix this together, and I shall keep this bowl on a bain-marie or water bath as it is commonly known. And now we wait for this to melt completely, stirring occasionally. Once all the chocolate and butter has melted, we take it off the heat and put the bowl on a piece of cloth, because it's wet, so you don't want to get the counter all wet and greasy. And now we add in 4 eggs, 1 egg at a time. Let's start with egg 1. Now goes in a tablespoon of vanilla essence. And we whisk. Now we add in about 360 grams of light brown sugar. Alternatively, you can also add caster sugar, that's white sugar if you wish, but I like light brown sugar in my brownie. Whisk the sugar in. Now we sieve in about 260 grams all-purpose flour. Followed by a teaspoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of salt. Now we whisk everything together. And now I'm going to pour this mixture in a chilled buttered pan. We tap this on the surface to get rid of any air bubbles. Fun. And now we keep this in the fridge to chill for about 20 minutes. Now that this is chilled, it goes in the oven for 40 minutes at 160 degrees. As our brownie is cooking, we make the caramel sauce. To make caramel sauce, we pour sugar in a pan on a high flame. We spread it out and wait for it to melt. This can also be done with white caster sugar. Reduce the flame as it melts. At a safe distance, pour in cream. immediately mix the caramel and cream together. When it all comes together, we take it off the heat and mix in a little bit of butter. And to stop the sugar from cooking any further in the hot pan, we pour it into a container. And the caramel sauce is done. The brownie is done. Now we leave it to cool for 10 minutes before we cut it into pieces. So there you have it, gooey dark chocolate brownies with a salted caramel sauce. Enjoy! Hello my lords, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Saraf's Food Log. Today we're going to tickle that sweet tooth and make a delectable chocolate cheesecake. So for making the chocolate cheesecake, we first have to make the biscuit base. I have here with me 400 grams of homemade chocolate biscuit. You can use any biscuit you want, or you can actually Google how to make a homemade chocolate biscuit and make it on your own. The choice is yours, but please make your own biscuit. Now let's crush this biscuit. Once the biscuit is nice and fine, with albeit a few lumps, we add in 100 grams of melted butter and mix everything together. We then pour this into a spring foam pan and flatten it out to form a base. Once this is done, we leave this in the fridge to chill till we use it again. And now to make the filling for the chocolate cheesecake, we have 230 grams of dark chocolate, which we will melt over a water bath in a heat-proof glass bowl. When the chocolate has melted completely, we take it off the heat and wait for it to cool down just a bit before we add things to it. To this melted chocolate, we're going to add 460 grams of cream cheese. And we whisk this together. Now we add in 220 grams of brown sugar. You can also add caster sugar if you wish, or icing sugar. Followed by 10 grams of cocoa powder. And finally, 2 tablespoons of milk. The milk gives it a good shine and texture. Now we pour the mixture onto the cake tin, where we've already set our base. And spread the mixture evenly to form a smooth surface. Now we tap this to make sure there are no air bubbles, and because I like tapping things. And we put this in the fridge to set. Off we go. Now let's whip some cream to stiff peaks till the cake's setting in the fridge. And I'm going to add some icing sugar to this, but that's optional. Stiff peak whipped cream. Now I'm going to transfer this into a piping bag made of my favorite thing in the world, silicone. That's only for baking, by the way, and phone covers. Cake has set, and now it's time to get it out of the mold. So, now let's dust that with some cocoa powder. And make some nice rosettes of the whipped cream. So there you have it, a delectable chocolate cheesecake to indulge your sweet tooth in. Enjoy!